Hello everyone, welcome to the inaugural Southeast Learning Festival, and my name is Thomaika Kuli Duarte. I am a lecturer in biosciences and environmental scientist in the Department of Applied Sciences here in Carlo, and director of EnviroCore, which is the Institute's Center of Research and Enterprise, providing sustainable solutions to various environmental problems. So, as I said, I'm a scientist, so scientists really are out for identifying certain issues, challenges, problems, and try to provide solutions for those. A major problem that humanity really faces at the moment is the issue of overpopulation. I realize that in some circles this is a taboo item to talk about, but as much as we want to refuse this is happening or put our head into the sun, so to speak, overpopulation does happen. And if we want to define this, it is a concept that can be applied to many species on the planet, in which case here the species is us, Homo sapiens. So when the species really exceeds the capacity of the ecosystem to sustain that, then the species will eventually collapse. However, the good news is that we are a clever species, or we hope so, and we are able to modify our environment in order to support the maintenance and the sustenance of more people. And in order to do that, then in order to sustain ourselves, we really need to develop what we call sustainable food security. This is an endeavor, a target that can only be achieved if we establish what we call sustainable food systems. So a sustainable food system, it is a system that delivers food and nutrition for all. So everybody has food to eat, but this is done in such a way that the various aspects of the production, be them economic, social, or environmental, in order to generate food, are not getting compromised in any way, and there's always something left for the future generations. So really it is a worthy cause involved here. In this way, then we need to think what we call the food recovery hierarchy. You can see that on the diagram on the left there, where we have that inverted pyramids, and we want the most desirable principles to be maintained, in which case we have the source reduction to reduce food losses and waste, and we want the most undesirable things to be represented at the minimum in our society. And as you can see, the tip of the inverted pyramid refers to, let's say, incineration and landfill. So really, in a sustainable food system, we want to maintain all the resources to be sustained and perpetuated for the next generations, but all the unsustainable practices, like the incineration and the landfill, for example, are to be reduced to the minimum. So this is what a sustainable food security system really aims at becoming. What I'm going to talk to you about today, folks, has to do with a really interesting and a success story project that a few years ago we got involved in Carlo, in our institute, in EnviroCore, aiming to look at in a sustainable way the resources that exist in our environment in order for food production to take place. And that's why the acronym of the project, as you can see there, is called ReNu2Farm. It is a project that is being funded, part funding by the European Union, by an organization of the European Union called Interreg, which promotes collaboration across countries that have interregional borders. So it is in Northwest Europe that this ReNu2Farm project was established. So IT Carlo was a partner in this project, and EnviroCore was a partner in this project, and I was the IT Carlo branch manager for the particular partner of the project here in Ireland. The project was a participation of many other partners, and as we will be going along the presentation, I will be explaining as well what other people did in the project as well. So, as I said, the project dealt with sustainability of soil nutrients. So it is really amazing what this earth contains in order to secure our sustenance and our continuation of our species. This presentation, when we were setting it up, I was asked which is the target group that I want to appeal to, and my target group really would be everyone, really, because everybody's a consumer. Or in Ireland or in the planet. However, the producers are the farmers, and why not? The producers might be the people who will take up this technology, further this project, to actually produce fertilizers which are sustainable and do not put at risk any other resources of our planet while producing them. So, as you can see in the slide that I'm showing you there, in order for a plant to grow, certain minerals are necessary, particularly nitrogen, N there for nitrogen, P for phosphorus, and K for potassium. So NPK are the holy grail, if you like, of making plants grow and be thriving and giving us all this important food that we need to maintain our societies and our civilization. Of course, other nutrients are also important, but NPK, as I said, are the most important ones. And up to this point, farmers would be mostly rely on to importing fertilizers like that in the EU. And everybody talks about climate change, and everybody talks about the biodiversity crisis that we're under, but few people know that we're also under a phosphorus emergency. What that means in plain English is that if we keep continuing exploiting the earth at the rate that we exploit it, without trying to sustain the minerals in it, in few years' time there will be no minerals left to sustain the growth of plants. How it happens at the moment is that we plant in exhaustive fashion in our agriculture, be it for plants that we consume directly or even plants that our animals consume when we want to, let's say, grow animals as well. So we require the planet to give us the nutrients. We get the nutrients, we make food, we produce the food, we eat the food. This becomes waste and then it gets lost. And all the nutrients that takes millennia and millions of years to be embedded into the soil to give rise to these valuable plants to us. So all the nutrients are passed on to the production and they are getting lost. So really we are in an emergency situation. We ring the bell ringing, and we need to do something to overcome this emergency and to provide sustainable food security for all, as I was saying in the previous slides. So, so talking about this, just to try to drive the impact to you now, this is what I'm trying to emphasize. That's why I'm going over and over again. Every time that phosphate is applied by our farmers, this phosphorus is being mined by some mountains which are collapsing in places like Brazil, Morocco, South Africa, far away from here. Imagine, phosphate is rocked out, rock phosphate is mined out, is put in bags, placed on trucks. The trucks are driven to the ports. The boats are sailing to Dublin port, then on top of other trucks, and then the trucks are driven wherever the fertilizer is to be used. Do you know what amount of energy is needed for this to happen? Massive amount of energy. So that is so unsustainable. Nitrogen is not produced like that, mineral nitrogen. You can actually capture nitrogen from the atmosphere because it's plentiful in our atmosphere. However, in order to capture nitrogen from the atmosphere to make it a mineral fertilizer, tons of energy, in fact of fossil fuel energy, is required for this to happen. Therefore, again, this is such an unsustainable way to fertilize our fields to make our food production. Therefore, we need to find different ways. Therefore, this ReNu2Farm project was designed, devised, developed, and it gave us some very good results. And this is why I'm here talking to you today, to be able, hopefully, to convince you that that's the way forward. So, what is a paradox in the whole scheme of things now that I'm talking to you about nutrient sustainability in Europe is that there are several regions in Europe where there is surplus of nutrients. So then we have to overcome another hurdle, which is that of legislation. That nutrient load in the various farms and areas in some places in Northwest Europe is called waste. The bureaucrats in Brussels, when they hear the term waste, they lose it. They don't want to hear about that. So our project came up to overcome also this hurdle to find ways to market this so that it's not waste anymore, but it's a useful output, so that it can be used locally if possible, so no more fossil fuel energy will be consumed, to be taken by our farmers and to be used to produce the valuable nutrition that everybody needs for our society to be maintained. But as I said, farmers sometimes are not even aware of these technologies that we can harvest these nutrients and we can provide to them. So this is what the ReNu2Farm project came to do. And while doing so, it provides a way of establishing a circular economy fashion of overcoming a very important and pertinent problem. So really, circular economy is an endeavor by which we have a model of production and consumption, which will involve sharing, leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing, and recycling existing materials. So in our case, the material is all this waste that is generated. So we have it there. So from that, might as well make something useful, and in the process, provide nutrient sustainability in every country where a plant of making those fertilizers can be established. And why not have something like that happening in Ireland? So my dream out of this would be, my target out of this would be all the good work that myself and my colleagues will have put behind this project to produce and validate the good result is somebody of you, somebody from the audience, and why not maybe we can all lobby together to go to the politicians or county councils or authorities or anybody who wants to listen to us to take this up and produce a plant of making sustainable fertilizers in Ireland, because it ticks all the boxes. We get rid of our waste in a very nice and sustainable way. We produce sustainable fertilizers so we can combat our nutrient mineral emergency that we're under at the moment. And also, why not create some jobs on the way? So that's why I chose this topic to present in this learning festival, folks, because I think there is something good that we brewed, and it's up to the society now to take it up and develop it further. Our job as scientists is to create knowledge. We have created the knowledge. Society now has to play ball and take this up and do something useful out of it. And as my title said, we have certain ways of going about establishing all these good things, which are, as we call them, nature-based solutions. So nature-based solutions are processes, activities, materials, all these kinds of things that protect sustainability, and they will restore natural or modified ecosystems. And by doing so, we can address societal challenges effectively and adaptively, and at the same time provide human well-being and biodiversity benefits. So really everybody benefits from our solutions. Now, our nature-based solutions are mainly the way that we apply our science, in that we take examples, we take tools that exist plentifully in our environments, and we take them and we utilize them to work towards the benefit of our society, but always towards the benefit of our environment as well. So I hope I gave you a kind of a preamble and an introduction as to why we need to embark into this, where we come from with this project, and how the concepts of circular economy tie into this, and how the concepts of nature-based solutions also tie into this. And now I'm going to start talking to you guys about the project proper. Okay. So in Ireland, it wasn't only Carlo that was involved with ReNu2Farm. We also have partners at the University of Limerick. Dr. Achim Schmallenberger was a partner, and also Dr. NatureBased in Cork, in Munster Technological University. But along with these guys, we teamed up with 7 more entities in the ReNu2Farm project. People from Germany, France, the Netherlands, in Belgium. And with us in this very exciting project, we had associate partners, as they're called. So Chagos in Ireland was one of them, and also the IFA. And really, I would like to take this opportunity to thank immensely all the partners in the project. You can't have really a project of this magnitude to be generated only by one partner. You really need the teamwork. You really need all these expertises to come and work together. So really, all the people from France, from Belgium, they were communication experts, they were agronomists, agronomy experts. We put our heads together to try to assess and solve the problem that came to our hands. Us in IT Carlo are the environmental risk assessment experts, who were the people who were able to take the recycling derived fertilizers, and I have some of those here now, folks, to show you, the struvites, things like potato waste or ashes from poultry waste, and all sorts of things that it can be considered rubbish and nobody wants it, that we took. And in fact, our partners in where are they? Autotech, these guys producing a fertilizer company in Germany, and also this guy, Soil Concept, in Luxembourg. They took all these raw materials that nobody wanted, they consider rubbish, and they were able to produce these granules that other partners in the project were able to assess agronomically to make sure that they make good plants. But in Carlo, we assessed the environmental safety of those. We were able to team up with Chagas, who very generously gave us their fields. So we established large field trials there, and they were able then to see what happens in the soil, this black box that many people don't want to mess with, because, as I said, it is black box. It's not as clear as to work with water, if you like. So nevertheless, we were able to employ certain biological entities from the soil to be able to find answers to see indeed if these novel fertilizers, again, more materials here, if these novel fertilizers are actually safe for the environment, and also we're able to see if our fertilizers are safe for crops, which are safe also for human consumption. And we have good news, so that's all a win-win situation. Also immensely grateful to the IFA, who pre-pandemic, obviously, they were able to invite us to their farm walks and other events that they had. So we went there and we met the farmers there, and were able to firsthand demonstrate the fertilizers, and also had open days with Chagas. So we had a very good communication avenues going, because really we need to get the word out to the people to see, to show them what we're doing, why we're doing it, and we hope then they will able to take up these technologies and take up these innovations to see how we can then tackle this challenge ahead of us of soil nutrient emergency ahead of us, and maintain our valuable crop production. So this is a map of the various partners in the project, folks. This is where we're located, us here in Carlo, and the Limerick folks. Unfortunately, Cork is not shown here, but we have partners in Cork, and then people in France, in Belgium, Netherlands, as I said, the Soil Concept partner in Germany, excuse me, Luxembourg, and also we had people in Germany collaborating also in our project. The project started in 2017. Us, as the RT Carlo partners, we stopped working the project just last December, but the project still goes ahead with the rest of the partners, because we want to see how we can bring the product to market more. But there is talk to maybe extend the project to another 4 or 5 year duration, if we can get some more funding from the European Union, because still, although we have good answers and we have good results, there are still some fertilizers that we're not very happy with, and we really need to clarify a bit further. So we try to find a bit more answers, if you like. So watch this space. Hopefully in another learning festival I might be able to hopefully explain some more things about the project, and hopefully there will be more good news to come. So how we go about this work in our NatureBased project is that we explore, first of all, the demand for nutrients and organic matter. We put the farmers in the middle of the project. We have very good partners collaborating here in Munster Technological University, and people from Inagro, and people from the University of Ghent in Belgium. These partners are, whereby we created questionnaires, and in collaboration with Chagas and the IFA here in Ireland, but also similar kind of organizations in the other countries of Europe, Northwest Europe, people were able to get out the word, give the questionnaires to the farmers, and get every response back, and see how these guys want the fertilizers to be created, in what formulation they want them, in what form, and how expensive they want them, what the fertilizers they want them to do for them, and so forth. So we got a really good hand on the pulse of the farming community of Northwest Europe, if you like, to be able then to see if we can tailor make what our farmers in Northwest Europe wish to get from us. So that was a major work package. I wasn't involved. We in Carl were not involved. Were not involved in that. However, we helped to spread the word, to do our social media outreach, reach Chagas, reach IFA, all these kinds of things, all our contacts. Everybody was mobilized in the project, although we're not responsible in organizing this part. But we were very much fundamental in the second part, where it says environmental assessment of recycling derived fertilizers. First, it was us in this work package, and then the University of Limerick also worked in this work package. And then the agronomic assessment of recycling derived fertilizers was mostly carried out by partners in France, in Germany, and in Belgium. And then the demonstration of recycling derived fertilizers was outreach events where we meet the farmers face to face, and all partners staged events like that in the individual kind of venues that they have in their own countries. Now, when the pandemic struck, that wasn't a great scenario because all the events that we had designed to happen and to go ahead didn't happen. So we were really limited to only online presentations, unfortunately. And thank God for having this online outlets. Imagine if we didn't have that as well. So we managed still online to be able to reach certain groups of people, to be able again to describe the project as I do now with you, and highlight the impact and the importance of this kind of project. So as you can see, on the one side we have project management being very important kind of aspect of the work, and on the other side, where my image hides this kind of bar there, it says communication. So communication, it was of a paramount importance. There was not a single day that there wouldn't be some exchange of emails, at some point in the project, to another partner, between partners. And we had every 6 months, we had a project partner meeting, so all the partners would get together to discuss. We had social media going all the time. We have project websites going all the time. And that was our way of open a window to the world and say, here we are, come over and see what we're doing. And then hopefully, as I said, we want two major stakeholders, actually three major stakeholders, to take this up. One would be the farmers, to take up these technologies, to use them in their fields. Two, we would like people to decide to build this kind of fertilizer reducing plants everywhere in Northwest Europe. And three, we want the authorities, we want the policymakers to listen and say, look, these guys are doing something sensible. We have so many challenges ahead of us. Let's listen what they want to say, and let's help with legislation and with support and with funding to actually make this reality. So let's see then what actually happened now in the project in terms of results, guys, and what everybody contributed. And I will focus mostly on the Irish context because we are a Southeast Learning Festival of Ireland, obviously. Okay, so let's see what our Cork colleagues did. So these guys, they reported on desired properties of recycling derived fertilizers from the perspective of the farmer, because this is, the farmer is the end user. So really, they looked for the demand for nutrients and organic matter in the various regions of Europe, including Ireland. And then they mapped those regions to find where there is specific demands happening in those regions. And then they tried to see how they can possibly contribute from various regions of surplus to other regions of shortages. And then also they were involved in the agronomic assessment of the recycling derived fertilizers. Again, this is Dr. Niamh Power in Munster Technological University, Cork IT at the time when the project started. But as we all know, we are just into creating technological universities in the various places. So Munster Technological University now has been established, so we rename a partner like that. Our colleagues in Limerick, they also participate in the same work package as us, the agroecological assessment of the recycling derived fertilizers. And then Akim and his team, they looked to assess the fertilizer on whether their application would be beneficial or not for soil microbes. This is what microbiota means, all the collective kind of populations of microbes in the soil, and also if certain processes, this is nature-based solutions, the nitrogen cycling and the phosphorus cycling, because I don't know if some of you know, but the minerals, phosphorus and nitrogen, they change states in the environment, be it in the soil or in the atmosphere and so forth, and microbes are paramount players to facilitate those cycles in the soil. Without microbes, we're gone. Nothing of like that will survive. So his work in the project was to see that if the really mineral cycles in the soils were maintained in the presence of these new fertilizers. So that was his work, our University of Limerick colleagues' work. And then us in Carlow were tasked to look also again how these new fertilizers that we put in the soil affect two major groups of soil organisms. These major groups are nematodes, and you see a nematode here. This is an infective juvenile of the nematode Nematode, which I photographed in our laboratories. And then next to it you see the bacteria. So first of all, then we were tasked to see how these recycling derived fertilizers affect nematode communities and how they affect bacterial soil communities. Why would be interested to see that? Because, as I said, if the bacterial communities are banjacs and they're not functioning in the soil very much, or even a little, then major process of the soil will die off, and therefore then the soil won't be this fertile substrate to produce good food security. So everything goes out the window. So really, we really need good microbes here. Why nematodes are important? Because nematodes themselves do two things. They're very important again in nutrient cycling through their casts. When they eat food in the soil ecosystem, they pass castings, droppings, which are full of the different forms of these various nutrients, and therefore they contribute into the nutrient cycling. So if the nematodes are affected negatively, they're out we go again. We won't have good food security. And another good thing about nematodes is that these nematodes are excellent indicators of environmental change. In our case, the change is the addition of the new fertilizers. So if that change is detrimental, we will see that in the nematode communities. For people who don't know, I believe if I have farmers watching, you do know what a nematode is. But for the people who don't know, nematodes are microscopic roundworms. These are worm-like creatures which are microscopic, so we don't see them with naked eye, but because we don't see them doesn't mean they're not there. They're everywhere in our soil. They're in soils, in sediments, and they're very important economically because they can be beneficial, as I mentioned, in nutrient cycling, but they can be also detrimental. Nematodes can parasitize plants, and they can cause a lot of damage to plants, so therefore no food production. But nematodes also can parasitize animals and can cause disease to animals of agricultural importance, like cattle and so forth. But also even our pets might have nematode infections. The worms that we hear about are, when we worm our pets, we worm them for nematode infection. So nematodes are with us, although we don't see them, and most of our society don't know about it. So I'm a nematologist myself by training. I'm an international expert in nematology, and my area of expertise is to look at the biodiversity in the soil of these worms, and then from that to make a conclusion as to if an environment is in good state, or if an environment is damaged, or if an environment is recovering. So again, to repeat, in this case, the suspect would be those fertilizers, and our aim would be to see if by putting those fertilizers in the field in Chagask, something detrimental happened to the soil or not. So let's see then a bit more about what we did in Carlow, because I can talk more about what we did in Carlow, obviously. So as I said, the nematodes are good indicators, are actually not just good, excellent indicators of environmental change. So we were looking at the soil community of nematodes impact of the recycling derived fertilizers. We do that by looking at the various feeding groups of nematodes in the soil. So we sample before and after addition of the fertilizers, and then we assess the various feeding groups of nematodes that there are in the soil. What you see in the various images I show here, folks, here is DNA sequencing results, because nematodes are very difficult organisms to assess their biodiversity, so we resort into DNA methods, and you can see here two very distinct upper body part images of nematodes. Here you see a plant feeder. You can see this stylet that goes into the plant, into the root, and it sucks out the valuable nutrition from the plant. But here you see a carnivore. This nematode that it has this big oral cavity that you see there with these buccal teeth there, it actually parasitizes and preys upon other nematodes. So by me and my my colleagues been able to understand what type of nematode feeding groups we have in the soil, we're able to make a conclusion as to how healthy the soil is. And in other words, the more of those predator nematodes we find in our soil, the better the soil quality is. But also we carried out ecotoxicological assessments. Now this is a mouthful of a word, ecotoxicology. It is a science that it's a kind of relatively newer area of science, of environmental science, that combines toxicology, environmental science, molecular biology, maths and so forth. So it's a science that looks at the impact of contaminants. Again, please don't be misled. At this point, we were not sure that RDFs are contaminants. We took them on face value that they're valuable materials, and we wanted to exclude that they're contaminants. And indeed, this is what we did. But we treated them as contaminants, as if they are contaminants, and we were able to rule out negative impacts of those contaminants on individual nematodes, on population of nematodes, on natural communities, and in ecosystems indeed. So this is my work in the project. I was responsible for this part of the ReNu2Farm project, the nematology analysis. Okay. And as I said, I'm an international expert in nematology, and I am the co-editor of the only book available internationally on nematodes as environmental indicators, whose image you see there on the left. And with this work, we mainly, myself and my colleagues internationally, and my colleagues here in Carlo, we assign taxonomical groups. In other words, what types, what species of nematodes we have in our samples, and then we assign them into their ecosystem being the field in Chagas, obviously. And then from this, we can calculate, based on mathematical formulas, what we call various indices. And this indices is as if we assign a particular number to a particular environment, and a particular number tells you how healthy your soil is or not. And again, healthy soil equals sustainable food security. Just to wrap it up and bring it back to the main theme of the session. I find sometimes when I give lectures, because I have it all in my head, I go on and on and on, but you really need to bring everything back again to where's the focus. So the focus is, we have a nutrient recycling project here. We know that we're challenged by overpopulation in the planet. We know that we need a lot of food for these mouths to be fed. In order to make a lot of food, we need a lot of nutrients in the soil. The way that we use agriculture so far, we know that we're depleting those nutrients. So this is where the ReNu2Farm comes into. We find all this waste that nobody wants, and it's a sore. We don't want that waste. We'll be drowning the waste if we don't do anything about it, but we are doing something about it. Out of this waste, we create these useful fertilizers, and by doing so, we hope to create some jobs as well. Enter circular economy. So I hope, again, bring everything back to you to keep it in context. So as well as the nematode communities that we analyzed from soil samples from Chagas, we also did some single species ecotoxicological analysis in the laboratory. And we look at what we call sublethal endpoints. These are toxicological parameters of the animals in question, whereby you don't look at mortality, but you look at how the animal changes behavior. That's why we call them sublethal. Okay, so just to give you some idea again about the nematode work that I was involved, amongst the various indices I used the maturity index, which is an indication of how disturbed a soil might be. That was developed by my good colleague in the Netherlands, Tom Bongers, in 1990. And we grade all the nematode groups that we find into a CPIC scale, C for colonizers and P for persisters. And you can see all of them are aligned from 1 to 5. So the more colonizers we have in our soil, that means we have a more opportunistic nematodes, but the persisters, they are few in number, but are the ones that they can take easily any potential disturbance in the soil, if you like, and again, they're able to persist it, to withstand it. That's what they call persisters. And we were able to use that system to analyze the results of our field trials in Chagas, in Johnstown, in Wexford. We teamed up with the team of Patrick Forrestal over there, and we're, as I said, we're very thankful to our colleagues over there. So this is the nematology work of IT Carlo, but also in Carlo, I have colleagues, Dr. Kieran Germain and Dr. David Dowling, and these are environmental microbiologists, these folks. So they analyze the soil microbiome. The term microbiome refers to the totality of all the bacteria and all the fungi that might exist in a particular area, in particular soil that we analyze. So when the soils are healthy, there's vast trillions of cells of different types of these microbes. And of course, like nematodes, there can be some of them very detrimental. Also, there might be detrimental microbes. Some of them might be causing disease to animals and humans. Some of those might cause disease to plants, but some of them are just very friendly. They just sit there doing the thing, and doing their thing means, again, this nutrient cycling, phosphate cycling, nitrogen cycling, and so forth. So as I said, in their functions is to mineralize the various soil nutrients. They help to maintain soil structure. All our farmers know how important soil structure is, to have good aerated soil. They help with decomposition. Decomposition it's an ecosystem service that is given to humanity from microbes. This is inviolable. Imagine what would happen to our planet if we didn't have this function of decomposition provided to us by a humble bacteria and fungi. Okay, they also promote plant growth and regulate the populations of plant pathogens. So overall, we know that maintaining healthy soil microbiomes results in increased plant health and good growth and good yields as well. In other words, good sustainable food security for all the mouths of our planet to be fed with. Just a flavor of our work in the field. This is my PhD student, Miss Anna Karpinska, in the fields, about to sample the soils in Johnstown Castle in Chagask. You see our experimental design on the right-hand side. Nothing to remember there, just shows you the various fertilizer treatments. Our controls on top: 0 fertilizer, 0 phosphorus, 40 kilograms per hectare, which is a standard dose that the farmers apply. Then other things were applied, like cattle slurry, struvites, ashes, and so forth. And then all this will run, and then a few weeks later we will go upon harvest. Usually we will go and do the sampling, and then we'll be able to analyze nematodes, bacteria, and fungi in the soils to see what we actually what we have there. In terms of the fertilizers, as I said, these are products that are taken from various waste streams: municipal waste, town waste, green waste, farm waste, waste that nobody wants, if you like. It is taken by our partners, Autotech that I mentioned there, and Soil Concept that I mentioned there, and these other people are mentioned at Timac Agro, although they were not partners in the project, but we just got fertilizers from them. So these guys were able to get all these waste streams, and out they go on the other side, and they make those, as I said, this is a struvite. This is, I don't know, I don't think you can see it very well here. This is a bit kind of moist material, as opposed to, what do I have here? I have the ash here, folks. More ashes. So, you know, in the end, you get all the waste, which is all sticky, gooey, smelly, and it goes through the factory, through the plant, and then you come out with this kind of need-to-use products that will be provided to our farmers, which will be placed in the fields, and then good sustainable food security can be established like that. But again, as I said, our job was to make sure that whatever we put in, it is actually sustainable. That means no energy is spent. However, the soil doesn't get poisoned in any way. Okay. Actually, now that I mentioned the no energy spent, just to mention that during the partner meetings pre-pandemic, that was in October 2019, I visited Luxembourg in the Soil Concept facilities, and that was somewhere in Luxembourg, and all the waste of Luxembourg, everything, it was accumulated there. It was a site there, folks, that you entered, and it was stinking. It was so smelly. However, you went to the plant factory, and then you saw the product being generated, and what was even more interesting was that when the product was generated, that waste also provided energy to run the plant. So the plant, the factory of making the recycling derived fertilizers, wasn't only good because it was making those sustainable fertilizers, it was good because it didn't use energy from nowhere else apart from the waste. Isn't that marvelous? This is what science can make for us, folks. And this is what I would like to see in Ireland sometime, that a sustainable, self-contained plant of making recycled derived fertilizers could be established somewhere to actually concentrate all the waste of Ireland. Why not? And provide a great waste management solution. And why not? Produce recycling derived fertilizers for sustainable food security and also give jobs to people. So without further ado, let's go to the conclusions, because otherwise I might tire you with a lot of scientific technicalities. So what did we find? Okay, we found that in terms of potential pathogens, because again, these things come from waste, from human waste. People are always concerned what happens, and if we can pass on pathogens like that and so forth. So we checked, and we found that there is no Salmonella, no E. coli, no Campylobacter, and no Listeria were found in our samples. So that we confirm that these are in accordance with the EU Fertilizing Product Regulation legislation of 2019. So therefore we say that they are safe for use in place of synthetic fertilizers. We were delighted with this outcome. Also, in terms of the analysis of soil bacteria and fungi, we found no negative impacts whatsoever in the fields, and particularly in the case of phosphate fertilizers. So we can easily say now that recycling derived fertilizers can easily replace rock phosphate. So down we go with digging and demolishing mountains in Morocco, Brazil, and South Africa. We can make our own derived fertilizer for phosphate here. No more fossil fuel to be spent on sailing boats or driving trucks all over the place. In terms of nematodes, however, we found that one particular ash negatively affected nematode species, and that's what I'm saying. The nematodes are very informative in this way. Those predators, which indicative of good environments, we didn't see them as plentiful in this particular ash, the poultry ash. And we really need to do more research to get to the bottom of that and see why, and see what's the compound, and see if we can modify this poultry ash in any way. And I hope then, as I said, this project will continue for another round of funding from the European Commission to be able to say in certainty that even the ashes are safe to use in the environment. But overall, given the nematode results for all the other fertilizers, because we don't have only ashes, we have many other struvites, for example. So overall, based on bacterial and fungal and nematode analysis, we can say that RDFs, the recycling derived fertilizers, can replace the use of conventional phosphorus and nitrogen fertilizers in farms. And we are indeed delighted with this outcome. Briefly now, just to mention the results our colleagues in Limerick found, is that they discovered that those fertilizers generally have either no impact or even a positive impact on the soil microbial communities involved in phosphorus cycling. So really, really good news. That was a brilliant result as well. Okay. On the other hand, our colleagues found that the mineral fertilizers that actually are in trade at the moment, are routinely used by farmers, actually show a negative effect on soil microbiota. So here you go, guys. Here we have a solution that is not only sustainable, it's actually better in terms of maintaining the goodness of what we know known as soil, of the substrate that nourishes all and the future generations to come. Our Limerick partners found also that overall the microbial evaluation has to be viewed in the context with other parameters. In other words, we need to take other things into account, folks. We need to see, for example, how these fertilizers perform in terms of growth, what kind of yield they give, and also soil nutrient availability and pH. And here I could report with sincerity that, as I said, people like colleagues in the University of Ghent and in Arvalis in France, they were doing in Agro in Belgium, they were doing the agronomic evaluation of those fertilizers, and they found them to be of the same par with the mineral fertilizers. So in essence, they have nothing to be jealous of the mineral fertilizers. In fact, they tick all the boxes, and in fact our RDFs to tick more boxes. So I cannot really recommend them enough as a way forward to providing a solution to the nutrient soil emergency that we're at the moment, primarily with phosphorus as we speak. Finally, the partners in the Munster Technological University in Cork. They found that desired properties from the perspective of the farmer is that the farmers needs to know what is the content and the organic matter content of the fertilizers in terms of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Obviously, the product has to be cost efficient for the farmer. It has to be either free or subsidized, or it has to be cheaper than the mineral fertilizer so that the farmer can go and say, I will get that one now. But even if it's the same value as the mineral fertilizer, we know that our fertilizers are better for the long-term sustenance of food security. So therefore, if they're the same value, I would highly recommend that people go for the recycling derived fertilizers as opposed to conventional mineral fertilizers that are available so far. So the success in the uptake by the farmers will depend on people realizing the qualities of the fertilizer, the properties and the parameters that are really important. Again, my intention of bringing this to the Learning Festival was part of that, acknowledging the qualities, bringing the word out, advocating for those things, because although, again, I'm not an expert in fertilizers per se, I'm a nematologist, I worked in this project. At this stage, after 4 years working with my colleagues, I know so much more about fertilizers that I knew when I started, and I can easily advocate, and I'm convinced that that's the way forward. And obviously people have to gain our trust. When I say people are the stakeholders, again, farmers most so, producers of fertilizer and policymakers. Really, the onus is on us to communicate that, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm here talking to you today. And then also we need to assure the consumers of the composition of the products, the safety and the benefits that they will bring. And again, that's why we checked all the potential maybe pathogens being there, and we found that they're not there. So they're very safe to use, and therefore I encourage everybody who listens to this presentation to get involved with this production if possible and with their usage. And then do your part to contribute to the circular economy. And that's where the concept of the circular economy gets into. I will repeat, we have an issue, overpopulation. We need to feed all these mouths. We have a problem. The minerals in the soil are getting depleted. We have another problem. We will be drowned in waste if we don't do anything about it. So this project came in to tick all the boxes and provide a solution forward. So humanity and society and policymakers or whoever, farmers, producers, we will be stupid if we don't really find this new technology that we have established and see the results that we have generated and take it up and see how we can move it to the next stage for the people to take advantage of. So some of the references that I have used in my presentation, you don't have to worry too much about that. And what I would like to mention here now is that I don't know if how many people are aware of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which is, if you like, the pathway that the United Nations sees as going forward for the continuation of our civilization. I know I'm using very pompous words, I'm using the word civilization, but it is actually all these things that need to be sustained are cornerstones and building blocks of our civilization. If any of those collapses, our civilization will collapse. So the UN going forward has set out their goals, calling them Sustainable Development Goals. And we are delighted with the ReNu2Farm project to know that directly we contribute towards goal number 2, zero hunger, goal number 11, sustainable cities and communities, goal number 13, climate action, because if mineral fertilizers are not produced from the atmosphere, as I said, there will be no fossil fuel consumed to make nitrogen mineral fertilizer. No more fossil fuel consumption. If rock phosphate is not dug and mined to be transported all over the planet, no more fossil fuel will be spent. So definitely we promote good climate action, but indirectly our project ticks boxes like of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, like goal number 3, good health and well-being. If everything happens sustainably, then we will have good health and well-being in the planet. Also goal number 6, clean water and sanitation, because we won't have a lot of waste problems happening with incinerations and all these kinds of things and landfills. Everything will be sustainably produced and put back into our food chain production. Number 13, no, number 14, 13 I mentioned, number 14, life below water, because again, if our groundwaters and all our waters are polluted, eventually all the waters, be it in rivers, lakes, oceans, also get affected. So we are delighted that this project is in alignment with all these various UN Sustainable Development Goals. Just to show you the consortium, that was the second consortium meeting on the left here in Carlo. That people came in and joined us back to back with the Environ Conference at the time in 2019. The picture on the right is the photograph when we had the kickoff meeting in Saarbrücken in Germany, when we started our meeting. A bright bunch of people all dedicating, putting our working times, and sometimes out of our working times, energies to produce good things for our society and really making an impact. And with that, I would thank you for your attention and for your interest to come and listen to this presentation. I'd like to thank the European Union and particularly Interreg for part funding this project. Our platforms for communication is the biorefined cluster. That there's a space in there to see our project, but also our project has a dedicated website there, so you can see it there. So I hope this presentation will be longer accessible for people to find those links and trace it up. But I will draw your attention to the final link that I have there. This is a YouTube little video where you can see the soil concept producing fertilizer plant in Luxembourg, the place I visited, the smelly one, as I was saying. And here our colleague Alex there is able to explain how the production happens. And again, my vision with all that, folks, is to use the nature-based solution, which is to dig and get those humble little worms called nematodes, which I know how to handle and I know how to analyze, to confirm the safety of these products in the soil, to allow for nutrient sustainability, to produce more food, to feed all the mouths that will be out by 2050. We foresee that about 10 billion people will be on the planet. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. My mail is also there. If anybody wants to contact me directly for any questions, be my guest. Thank you very much. Best of luck to everybody. And please remember, there's only one Earth we have, and our strength is in numbers. If we all do a little bit, we're so many of us, if we all do a little bit, we will make a change. Thank you very much.